Lukanya, I believe that that diamond is called the Great Star of Africa. It's a 530 carats gem that was mined in South Africa in 1905. Yeah, as Victor says, it was stolen from South Africa. It has an estimated worth of $400 million US. Could be wrong with those numbers.
Let's talk a little bit about the word Commonwealth. I think if we think about it, it means that all of us should be wealthy. Commonwealth,
yeah.
You know, and I mean, growing up, I always used to think of the Commonwealth as, you know, being that some people got wealthy, which were our colonizers, which was the Queen and all of those people, and then we were just left as the commoners.
Let's talk now to Noel Ferguson, Executive Director and Dean at the World Leadership Institute. Noel, good evening, and thank you very much for your time and for joining us tonight up here on In Focus. Well, let's focus a little bit on the royal family itself. The Queen's 4 children are all either traveling now or they have already arrived at the royal residence in the Scottish Island. How close are they as a member of the family, and what could possibly be going on within those bounds? I mean, it's purely speculative, but knowing how close knit they are, what could be happening?
Well, certainly at this time of mourning, you're saying they are close. Obviously, it is a family circumstance. It's not just the loss of a monarch and the Commonwealth taking note of that, but obviously there's children and grandchildren and so forth involved. So there is a personal element to this. But certainly the 4 children arrived this afternoon. We're unsure whether they had arrived prior to the passing of the Queen or not. We may find out in the days ahead. But certainly the royal family has experienced its own turmoil in the past number of years. Like any family, you'll have renegades, you'll have arguments, and the Queen has certainly had her battles with dealing with her children, particularly Prince Andrew and the tarnish that he exposed himself in the United States. Prince Charles in the past has been accused of being a meddling individual. He's been quite outspoken regarding architecture, regarding climate. So I think there's an aspiration that he will not be just quite as vocal as that now, that he steps into the role as monarch. He is now officially King Charles III. Now, obviously the other children just trying to come to mind. It's the Duke of Sussex and his wife. Goodness, I can't remember the other one. That's terrible at the moment. But certainly, it's a family circumstance.
Yeah. How closely managed and tightly managed is that succession process? I mean, we've seen in South Africa monarchs going at a contestation quite hard here when it comes to succession. It looks from the London Bridge plan that this is a process that is already set in place. People almost know exactly what's going to happen.
Absolutely. I mean, this particular circumstance is rehearsed or planned for many years in advance. With regards to how the royal family will operate from this point on, we know that Charles has had the intent to reduce the size of the royal family, particularly with those who are drawing down from the public purse. So that's something that we should expect to see in the probably the years ahead. What will happen in the next few months? Difficult to know. Obviously, we'll need to give opportunity for mourning on behalf of the Queen, and then there will be the coronation in due course of King Charles III. He comes to the crown at a very moment of turbulence in the world, as you previously mentioned this evening. As to the degree of political impact he will have, I think that, legitimately or legally, the royal household no longer has political powers. That is obviously devolved to Parliament. So it's a different kind of the soft power or soft politics that Charles will need to use from this point on.
What happens now in England? I mean, I'm seeing here some communication coming in. For example, the England team and the cricket team will not be playing South Africa. From what I'm seeing, that particular game will no longer take place. Does all business come to a halt?
If we refer back 18 months or so to the passing of Duke of Edinburgh, then the same circumstance then, there was a period of mourning, but obviously with the Queen being the monarch, it's an unprecedented and probably it's outside of living memory, essentially, as to what happened on the passing of the previous monarch. There will be many suspensions of many activities. There will be sporting and probably public engagements will all be put on suspension. And I think that plan for what happens when the monarch passes isn't publicly available. And I think kind of as the days pass ahead, we'll find out little by little what the plan is from this point on to acknowledge the passing of the Queen.
Yeah, it would be, I suppose, the first experience for many, and for the government itself, and for us, the media, and maybe the media in the United Kingdom as well, to experience this kind of a moment. Is there anything that you could recall that could possibly come close to it?
Not at all, because there's actually a number of exceptions and kind of records with this passing. Obviously, the Queen achieved 70 years in service. She just appointed the 15th Prime Minister of her reign 2 days ago when Liz Truss became the Prime Minister of the UK. Prince Charles will become the oldest king in history to have been king consort at the age of 74. Likewise, his son William will become the oldest Prince of Wales in history as well, once if he is appointed to that position. So it's exceptional in many ways, and it's going to mark a number of records that have never been achieved before.
Talking of you said it's the 15th Prime Minister to be inaugurated. I believe the year difference between the 15th Prime Minister and the first Prime Minister that she inaugurated is about, what, 100 years?
I think during that period, your previous contributor was saying that he saw the Queen as a woman of class and dignity. And I think even during her first enrollment of a Prime Minister that she achieved, society was much more respectful to each other. I think we were all more dignified back then. And certainly society has moved on in many ways over the past 70 or so years. Some for the better, some not quite for the better. Again, if you and I were here in 70 years' time, it would be interesting to look back and see, well, what's happened in the future compared to what's now happened over the past 70 years. I think Charles's reign, it won't be as long as the Queen's. Obviously, I don't think he's going to achieve longevity of 70 years in the role, unfortunately, due to his advanced years. But he will face many difficulties, I think, that even the Queen hadn't experienced during her period in the sea.
It's a testing time. I mean, globally in the world, but more so in England as well. With of course, as we're speaking, new Prime Minister, the circumstances under which the previous Prime Minister had to leave are also quite controversial. But there's a lot of challenge in terms of the cost of living crisis. There's wars that are going on. Is the incoming leadership up for that task?
Oh, well, time will tell on that. I know whenever you and I last spoke, we were talking about Boris Johnson's kind of anger as he was ejected from office, essentially. There's a huge financial crisis about to hit globally as a consequence of what's going on in Europe. Your previous contributor was saying that the UK had or the Bank of England had one of the largest gold reserves in the world. I think that's no longer the case. I think prior to the recession that hit the world in 2009, the Labour government at that stage thought we were doing so well, we could actually sell off the gold and convert it into hard cash, which there was public outcry over, and so that will have put down the public purse. Liz Truss has made an announcement to say that she's going to try and create some kind of financial intervention so that families in the UK aren't hit as hard in the purse or the wallet due to the rising price of gas and fuel and electricity, etc. But It's a bit like 2 years ago whenever COVID hits. You know, a new year arrived and all of a sudden within 4 weeks, it was nothing that anybody could have forecast. Between now and next week, the same could happen all over again. Is Liz Truss up to the job? Time will tell. Personally, I see her as the best of a bad choice. There wasn't a great range of candidates whenever they came forward, but I suppose we need to give them time. But do they have time? That's the question.
Noel Ferguson, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on.